Well, as from now I'm Ilmichum, what they call me, Ilmichum. And that's the elders gave me that title. We made little beds back there for the kids. The kids were sleeping back there, made little beds, and we were sitting there around here, and the kids, they were sleeping up there. But it was, we had a roof on it then, and so it was nice and dry for the kids to sleep there, because our ceremonies last all night. Oh, the huckleberries, kusum, all the berries that are out there, they used to, any other plants they would dig up. My mom said they were relentless. They would go through there, they'd dig stuff up, and they'd make big piles, you know, and then they'd come back in the fall and they'd burn them piles and everything. Anything that they didn't want there wasn't there. The only thing that grew in the mountains and from there all down were all a food source, or if it wasn't food, it was medicine. And they were really medicine properties to them. So with that, they would trade them, and then they'd go to the coast. So there was a trade route right through here that was going for thousands and thousands of years. With this ooligan oil and dried the clams and oysters, they would bring them clear into the interior. And these people on the coast, they were lacking in those days in sunlight. So they had to have a lot of kusum. It's really rich in vitamin C, and it's a medicine. It was a big metropolis through here, all through the coast, all through the interiors, until it was all disrupted. Wherever you see petrographs, that they would paint what they saw, the visions that were given them. And they say the visions, that's the paintings that lasted forever, like now, they would come true. So the ones that you see on these lakes right now, they all came true. But they had their own ways of making their paints, you know. Like they used a lot of fish oils and things like that, and, you know, different pigmentations of the earth and things like that. The disease had started getting people, you know, disease, and I don't know, it's hard to describe when 1 out of 100 survives, you know. Found out where the remains were through the archaeological digs, and then we went after them from there and wound up over in Victoria and picked them up there, brought them back. When you're talking hundreds of thousands dead, 240 of us left. So that's why they call us extinct. We wasn't supposed to make it back from that 240, but we did. So we're here. Oh, this is a pit house here. We're reconstructing a pit house here right now. We have our winter ceremonies here in the land. We still have maintain our way of life.
Scale, people of the land, but more specifically, Sinaixt. We are bull trout people. That was our main food subsistence. They tried to send me residential, then I went to foster care regardless, either, you know, and I got colonialized. They're cloned. I woke up in the facade of Canada, United States, and I became a debt slave, and I basically worked most of my life. And I got out of my tradition for many years, but when I started recognizing everything for what it really is, and I started recognizing who I am, I went back to the land, back to my tradition and my culture. This one here, other than the door, this one is mostly built traditionally. And the slope, the pitch, everything is identical to what my grandmother has told me.
An lattice shaft was a short shaft with a large tip. It fit into the notch of another handheld stick, and it was brought back over the shoulder and flung. That's an awl. That's for drilling holes. It's basically volcanic glass. Obsidian, which is the most commonly used medium on the planet. It lends itself so nicely to working. The rough shaping would likely be started out with what is called percussion flaking, and that's basically just hammering. It's called pressure flaking, and it was done by applying direct pressure to a sharp edge. And as you increase and build up the pressure, the tension grows, and then pop, off will come a flake. A piece of rawhide, leather, put it in the palm, place the medium in there, and work with the other hand. I suspect it was designed and prized as a ceremonial type thing. And what this is an arrow shaft making device. If you look down the length of it, can you see the
ridges?
The ridges, okay? So that's for rough work. That'll remove quite a bit of material because of those ridges. You'll see it forms an imperfect circle. You put the shaft in here, put the two halves together, and start reaming.
The Indians at that time, from what I can understand, would winter down at Kettle Falls where the fish came up and the salmon came. So they made them go back and get fur to trade with, and that meant that they had to winter then in the Slocan. And there are places in the Slocan where they did winter, families, individual families. And that would be at Indian Creek, the one on our old ranch at Slocan, and some down the valley. The white man actually came in about 1891. Nelson people built the trail so they could get in on the economy there, they sell the goods. They built the trail as far as Lemon Creek. Then they had a little boat that ran down to Lemon Creek and picked up the stuff and brought it up to the lake.
Billy Comence was the first white man to ever come up the Slocan River. And when he came up the river, the Indians were all along the river, out by, well, about 4 miles south down the river. There's big holes in the ground where they had a big camp there. It's on Chuck Broadman's property. And anyway, when he come along there, the Indians said that he could make it up with his canoe, but slow can go. And that's how the name Slocan come up, because they told him slow can go.
McGuire and them, they were all coming up pushing rafts, and they asked him if they could get up the Slocan River and up to the lake. They knew there was a lake up in this area, but they asked him if they figured they could make it with their rafts. And the Indian said, if you go slow, can go. So that's how Slocan got its name, Slocan.
Because when my father was young and lived here, there was only one Indian fellow he knew, and I used to know his name, but I don't know it anymore. But he had a sister, and she never married. And I always remember my dad saying, he said to him once, I think his name might have been Joe, but I'm not positive. And he said, why does your sister not marry? And he said, because there's no Indians left. But those are the only Indians that were here then.
After the white man came. So, and they only stayed for a short time because, again, they went back down to Colville because by this time the Hudson Bay wasn't buying their fur. But anyway.
You're standing here, I'm standing here, in this here ancient pit house telling you about my ways. That there's what it said, one day we would meet like this.